from my father, 100%. Yeah. Just trying to spot opportunities. Listen, we're not oil barons or film stars. We're just a small family business in Ipswich. But we was brought up to work. My father worked hard. He came from a big family where they had to work hard. They were farming. They had the first car garages in Ipswich back in the late 40s, early 50s. I was fortunate enough to go to private school, but I think he actually paid me to go there so I could have more time off to be with him at work, which I was at a very young age, and I'm bloody glad I was. Gave me a good upbringing, good head start in life. Yeah, unfortunately he died nearly 29 years ago, which was devastating enough. I lost, I was literally with him all the time. The same is happening now with history repeating itself with Jake. He's taken over the business without any formal, like you're taking over from today, and that's what was happening to me with my father. But what I lost, as much as anything, was my underwriter, because he'd speak to me after tea on the phone, what you bought, what we sold, what we've done on hire, what we're doing. All of a sudden the phone call stopped and I'm on my own. We always tried to be different to our competitors because we were our main competitors in the rental market, obviously national companies, big national companies. Some of them are no longer in business, some are. But when you've got a national offering, it has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is, obviously, by definition, you can have a national offering. The disadvantage, in my opinion, is, let's say a big company has 100 depots. Law of averages says you can have 30 good depot managers and good teams. You can have another 30 average. You can have 20 or 30, 40 that are very, very poor. We tried to offer a top standard because we were just there policing all the time. That's all I've done. Even now, the office or the meeting room we're in now was going to be my office when this building was built. I was in there for an hour and thought, what on earth am I doing here? So I've got a little office downstairs, there's glass all the way around so I can keep an eye on what's going on. And it's just trying to keep the standards up, and that's what we always try to do. And spot opportunities, tried to move the industry forward. We were the first company to offer air conditioning telehandlers across the fleet. We were the first company to offer chassis leveling on 14 metre and above telehandlers. We were the first company to offer hydraulic fork position, save potential injuries, operators getting their fingers nipped moving forks on a building sites. So we've always tried to move it forward. And now, in the modern era now, Jake has taken it, well, he's running on a day-to-day basis, let's make no mistake about it. And the big thing focusing now is safety. Safety has always been important, but even more so now. The technology is helping. We need to make the working place a safer environment on a continual basis and move forward. And that's what he's done great jobs with, along with his team of people, of course, not just on his own. But he's I'm 62 now. I'm a bit analog, as he puts it. But he's very much a man of today, and at 35 years old, perhaps how I was when I was 35 years old. So that's just history repeating itself, I guess. Jake had his chosen career, which was a professional motocross racer, as you know, and he worked very hard at that, and I think he learnt a lot from that. We're very different people. He's like his mother, unfortunately for him. He's a hard-working guy, and that's the reason we sold our previous family business, because he had no interest in it. We sold that just over 10 years ago, and then 8 years ago, I think it was May just gone, he had a serious injury in racing in Italy, and suddenly announced one Saturday morning that he wanted to come to work. Well, to be honest, we nearly fainted, but that was all my dreams come true all at once, as far as the business is concerned. And he's I was only saying to my wife this morning, I think at certain times he's definitely looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about? What do you know? And when you're young and your father continually tells you something, drills it into you, it gets on your nerves after a while. I know I lived his life, if you like. But then all of a sudden you think, hold on a minute, perhaps he's not so stupid. Because one thing you can't buy is experience, and that's the only good thing about getting old, is you've seen a few things along the way and hopefully learn from mistakes. But the business is a very, very good set of hands now. He's a far cleverer person than me, businessman than me, and the results are proven. He's taken it forward in all different directions. I'm a bit annoyed about it because it's easier to spell than chairman. There's no problem to me at all. I'm at work every day. I'll never retire. And just going back to Jake momentarily, or obviously we've got a lot of conversations about Jake and the future of the business. When we sold up 10 years ago, we're just going to have this place and have a small business. And he came back from racing overseas once, and we sat at home. And he said, "What on earth are you doing? You're making it too big. You're coming home stressed. You're getting on mum's nerves. You've got to stop it. What are you working for?" I said, "I'll tell you what, doing. Stop racing motocross." We said, I love it. I said, "I can't give up work because I love it. That's my motocross." And you know, I think he got me from that day on as far as that part was concerned. And the last 2 years, his sister Holly has been chasing in debt. She's made a very, very good job of that because she won't put up with bullshit off the customers. You know, everybody has the challenges getting paid today, as we know. But if they want to lie and play silly games, they're doing it with the wrong person. She's very strong, and the results are remarkable. How our debt has come down. Yeah, 100%. Good question. It would be nothing like it is now. Would I have been happy with half a dozen tippers and 100 diggers? No, because I actually love this. Apart from my family, this is my life. So I would always be pressing on till the day I was being wheeled out of their feet first. So no, it would be nothing like it is now. He's just taken it to a different dimension, no question. He's built a very good team of people around, because you can't. It's not a one-man show. No. You know, if you're a one-man show, you're a bricklayer, and there's nothing wrong with bricklayers either, by the way. But you know what I mean. You're a limit. You need good people, a good team, and he's actually quite good at identifying people. The other thing I like about him is he's a calmer person than me, a much calmer person. I get angry and fly off a handle too quickly. Nothing like my father, I hasten to add, but. He won't be messed about by people either. He'll put up with it, but he has a very good way about him with people. I suppose that comes from a media. When he was racing, he was continually being interviewed by magazines and TV channels around the world. But does that make you persona? I guess that's a stupid thing to say, because it doesn't. But he's very good at dealing with people. But he won't put up with bullshit, which I like, because nobody should put up with that. 100%. That's a good question. If I'd taken it over, I think if I've got your question right, exactly as it is today, at 33 years old, it would have carried on as it is now, because I would have been used to it because I would have been brought up in it. If I was suddenly dropped into this business after not being here for 20 years, it wouldn't work, would it? Does that make sense? Yeah. You know, I'm trying to. Yeah, I was ready. You know, nothing. It was seamless when my father died. Not because he died. Obviously, the business grew. We had opportunities. We took opportunities and took some chances. Had a lot of luck along the way as well. We worked hard, but we've also had a lot of luck. Pushed the boundaries, as when I work at my best, or me personally, and historically, when I really pushed it. You know, we bought too many machines. So I got to roll the sleeves up, work a bit harder, and make this work, boys. And we have. I've been lucky. I've had some bloody good people around me as well, no question. And also a good wife who's put up me going home a miserable bugger half the time. So said about Jake how he is with people, how he can read people, and he gets that from his mother. I could walk in at night from work, and before I'd open my mouth, she'd say, "You'd had a crap, don't you?" Or, "You've met somebody you like." Because I'm perhaps, I don't know, easy to read, I guess, I don't know. But I think in answer to your question, a long way around it, as always with me, is if you're working in that environment, a business this size and as diverse as it is now, you would be able to cope with it, because that's what you've been doing anyway. For me, I hope I'm here in 10 years' time to see it. I'm loving it. I'm loving every minute of it. I get very annoyed when we do silly things, people do stupid things, and sometimes should know better. Sometimes, you know, things happen, don't they? That annoys me. But apart from that, I'm loving the expansion of it and the growth of it. Jake, as I said earlier, he's a very, very different person to me. I was forward thinking, but in a narrow bandwidth. I only had this conversation with him earlier. My father was not narrow-minded, but had this bandwidth. Mine was that wide when it changed, so I put my spin on it, let's call it that. And Jake's is that wide, so he's putting his own spin on it. I personally think that's going to be a much larger contracting business. We're still heavily involved in vehicle hire and obviously an equipment hire. He's taken on different parts of that, moved it forward in different ways with the agricultural hire, GPS on machines, safety system on machines. That's helping that part of it. But I think the biggest growth for our little family of businesses, let's call it that, with his leadership, it's going to go like that, but like that as well, in my opinion. That's already happening. Oh yeah, I really hope I'm here in 10 years' time to see it. I hope it's awesome. Oh, we haven't got that long, have we? There's loads of things. We all make mistakes and do silly things. Think, oh, how did I do that? But you know what? You can't change what happened yesterday. You've got to try and change it today and move forward. There's loads of things I'll change, mainly about myself personally. We've done what we've done. Listen, I'm not an educated guy. I had a good teacher in my dad, taught me good values and to roll my sleeves up and get stuck in. I can't be doing with lazy people. Jake can't be doing with lazy people. That's not the way forward. Unfortunately, we seem to be breeding them in this country at the moment, and it's such a shame. We're not here to talk about politics, but we need a massive change of direction to wake these young kids up a bit. And Jake's done it with implementing an apprenticeship scheme, which has been very successful. Had a very, very small failure rate from what I've seen so far, minuscule actually. And these young people are now working on sites for us and being encouraged. I think Jake had his challenges with that with older members of the staff to start off with, whereas we don't want these young kids to work for them. But my understanding of how it was pointed out and said, look, you were 18, 20 one day. You had your first day at work one day. Give these boys a hand. This is our future. And you know what? Most of our older guys have been great with them, from what I understand. As I say, I try not to interfere with him too much because we clash. And I don't want to argue with him. We have a difference of opinions, but we leave. We don't wash a dirty washed in public, and we don't very often argue, particularly anyway. He's quite a strong-willed person. I know when he thinks I'm wrong, and we don't need to have a slanging match about it, which is another great part. But that was completely opposite of my father. We argued all day long, and then he used to pick the phone up after it and I'd have another row. But that was his way. Whatever I did was never any good. It was his way of pushing me and making me try harder. And I responded exactly the way he'd hoped. Perhaps it wasn't contrived, but that's how it was. But the future of the business is definitely younger people. From me, like I said earlier, I'm not an educated guy, and I'm pretty simple. I work on common sense. It doesn't matter what industry you're going to go in, you've got to know your job. You've got to work twice as hard as the man next to you, and you've got to stick to your word. And if you do that, you'll succeed. But the other problem we have in all walks of life is people have a few jobs, get a business going, earn a few quid. The first thing they do is buy the old woman an X5 or a Range Rover Sport. And then the next thing, 2 jobs don't go according to plan. And unfortunately, some businesses, not all businesses, but a lot of them fail. You've got to put the groundwork in first. You don't build a house on sand, you build it on concrete. You've got to have a firm footing. So it doesn't matter where. My father had a great saying, it doesn't matter where you start in life, it's where you finish up. But the problem is everybody wants to be a millionaire by Christmas. It doesn't work. You've got to do the hard yards, as they say, and just stick at it. It doesn't happen overnight. I was lucky my father had a business and I was brought up in it, as I said earlier. And it's tough for guys starting on their own. But you know what? It can be done. I've seen it done many times in my lifetime and it's still happening today. But you've got to work hard and stick at it. It's not all going to happen in 5 minutes.